Detectives and Special Weapons Police went to the scene of the shootings early this morning. Detectives say the incident followed a domestic dispute in the Caravan Park at about 2 a.m. after a man allegedly confronted several other men and a woman with a .22 semi-automatic rifle.
The man fired 3 rounds from a .22 semi-automatic rifle at a man and 2 rounds into another man, and he left the scene.
Any idea what the argument arose from?
No, we don't know at this stage.
It's believed the gunman then fled by boat up the Caravan River, dumping the weapon under a bridge. Early this morning, police arrested a local fisherman. He was escorted to the scene of the shooting under guard and was later taken to Raymond Terrace Police Station for further questioning.
The foundation is community-based and so appropriately was launched in Newcastle City Hall. It will work towards providing medical treatment and financial support for AIDS sufferers, as well as AIDS education programs. Funding will come almost entirely through donations. The Hunter Lions Club showed the way today, presenting the foundation with a $6,400 cheque for a computer. Dr David Sutherland of the Royal Newcastle Hospital AIDS Unit says the community must join the fight if the virus is to be overcome.
This is an enormous problem. It's a problem that threatens to blow our healthcare system wide apart. We need everybody involved.
The foundation's first goal is to set up an AIDS refuge with a $70,000 state government grant. That centre will probably be a converted 3-bedroom house. However, the foundation has much bigger plans for the future. Within 3 years, it hopes to start work on a $1.5 million community outreach centre. The centre will provide hostel-type accommodation for AIDS sufferers not sick enough to need hospitalisation. Dr Sutherland says such facilities are already needed and the demand will escalate.
We currently look after 300 or 400 people who are sick with the disease, and that we regularly have 3, 4, as many as 7 people in hospital at one time.
So it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better?
It must, because we have 5, 6, 8 years of accrued virus there, even if from today nobody ever got the virus again.
I know we've said it time and time again, but you keep having to say it, don't you?
That's right.
All right, thanks.
It was a shock defeat in Nandi last week. Australia, the team which beat the world champions Argentina, down by one of the world's floundering soccer nations.
Bad run from Delay. And a good shot, and it's gone in!
We didn't go out there with probably the full enthusiasm of an international game. We thought it was just going to happen, a game that you just expect to happen when you play against Fiji. I don't think they've beaten Australia for about 10 years. So.
The squad of 18 players were practising moves to overrun the aggressive play of the Fijians at the Azuri Oval at Whitebridge this morning. Coach Frank Arrick had plenty to say. And the players rallied, putting young reserve goalkeeper Mike Gibson through his paces. The side has been weakened with the absence of Farina, Mitchell and Patikas playing in European competitions, and with Wade and Peterson out with injury. But Captain Yankos says after last Saturday's hiccup against the Fijians, the Socceroos are not only playing for survival in the World Cup, the team is playing for pride.
I think it's for Australian soccer. It's an important game, obviously because of the World Cup campaign against Israel and New Zealand, and it's important for us to be able to go out there and prove that we are a team that can play good soccer and get results as well. I think you know, if we stumble at this particular stage, then all the work that we have done to improve the game in Australia will be just out the window.
Meanwhile, at a special civic reception given by the Lake Macquarie Council, the Fijians didn't seem too fazed by the pressure of the big game. They've had a fairy tale run so far in the series, beating the mighty Socceroos. And...
oh yes, we're looking forward to do it again.
Play begins tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at Macquarie Field, Spears Point. Peter Ryan reporting for NBN News.
Mr Pickering and Mr Lander came to verbal blows in May when the Police Minister recommended to Cabinet that the Ombudsman be restricted to investigating cases which could result in police being charged with indictable offences. That suggestion incensed Mr Lander, who said it was his role to investigate even minor public grievances, and 50% of the 2,500 directed to him a year were to do with the police. Mr Lander eventually won that battle, although at the expense of some police force goodwill. Goodwill he is now working hard to retrieve. Mr Lander was in Newcastle today to talk to police officers about their criticisms of his department. He also took the opportunity, however, to make it clear that while extending an olive branch, it was held in an iron fist.
If police internal investigations were effective, we wouldn't have a role to play at all. They're not independent. And for that reason, they're not seen to be, by the public, to be necessarily genuine enough to satisfy. That's very healthy, I think.
As for Mr Pickering's criticism that investigating police is bad for morale,
I certainly don't believe that anything that we do should affect their morale at all. After all, the role we fill where the police are concerned is not much different to the role the police themselves fill.
the government has in fact come down clearly on the side of the Ombudsman. This week a bill has been put to Parliament which, if accepted, would see the powers of the Ombudsman extended, allowing him to make his findings public before they are tabled in Parliament.
With us, and we haven't.
For most Australians, the hardest thing about Christmas is deciding what presents to buy. A growing number of people, however, don't have that pleasant dilemma. For the poor of the hunter, Christmas is just a time when the division between the haves and the have-nots becomes more obvious. It's those people the Smith family sets out to help. Each year it holds an appeal to raise money to buy food hampers and toys for needy families. This year, however, many families will miss out on the regular distribution due to a shortage of food, toys and the money to buy them. Northern Zone Manager Les Slack says the shortfall is due to a combination of a growing demand on the Smith family as poor families battle increasing rents and a growing number of charities competing for donations.
I don't think people in the Hunter realise just how much poverty we have in the area. There's such a lot of other well-known causes raising money at this time of the year too, that I don't think sufficient thought is given to the poor people and the plight they're in during the festive season.
And just getting the food and toys that are available packed is a major achievement in itself. Most of the work is done by a small handful of volunteers labouring in the intense heat of the Smith family warehouse. They're in short supply as well. Meanwhile, Newcastle City Hall was the venue today for the launch of the Australian Council of Churches Major Appeal of the Year. The council is made up of 13 of the major denominations, and several had representatives on hand for the launch by the President of the New South Wales Council of Churches, Bishop Appleby.
The appeal is very important because poverty around the world doesn't seem to get any better but seems to get worse. There are disasters and emergencies through the year, and we need to have this appeal so that we can respond to those very urgent demands.
The Christmas Bowl appeal began after World War II, when families were encouraged to place an empty bowl on the table on Christmas Day and put into it as much as they spent on their own meal. Last year it raised almost $2 million, the majority going to overseas aid projects. Some of the appeal money is also retained in a reserve to aid those hit by natural disasters. The presence of that fund meant the Council of Churches could donate $40,000 immediately Bangladesh was devastated by floods earlier this year.
Today's visit was a familiarisation run for members of the council, which advises Virginia Chadwick, the Minister for Family and Community Services, on a wide range of issues affecting women. The Hunter is the only region in Australia that boasts a mobile breast screening unit, with a $300,000 price tag picked up by NBN television and the state government. It's hoped the bus will soon be in use, providing a means of early detection for breast cancer. There are 200 new cases of the disease in the valley each year, and a simple mammogram can mean the difference between life and death.
Well, it's essential because we know from mammograms that have been carried out that prevention is the best form of protecting oneself against disease, and particularly cancer. Cancer is curable. It is not a death sentence anymore for a woman, and particularly if you can detect it at an early stage, if we can get women to get used to going to have a pap smear, to going to have a mammogram, we will all be better off, the woman herself and her family.
How impressed have you been with what you've seen here today?
We don't have anything like this in the rest of Australia, and I think it's time we did. I think the people of Newcastle need to be congratulated to put their effort and their money together. And
Council members also inspected the new mammography suite due to open in January. The suite was funded by the state government through the Hunter Area Health Service, while the sophisticated CT scanner was paid for by the community through telethon. Meanwhile, a group of cyclists is pedalling from Coolangatta to Camperdown in a bid to help sick children. The athletes are travelling 180 kilometres a day, raising money for the proposed Ronald McDonald House to be built at Rankin Park. Living on a diet of rice, bananas and staminade, and not the more familiar Big Macs, they've so far raised $3,000.
This 80-hectare site behind Arimba railway station will be unique in Australia. Not only will it house the Central Coast campus of the University of Newcastle, it will also be the site for a TAFE college, WEA and other educational establishments. The federal government's $1.6 million commitment is to be spread over 3 years, allowing the number of full-time student places to build up to 100 by 1991. The initial grant of $293,000 will allow for 40 full-time places, but it is not expected that teaching will begin on site until the middle of next year. And the ideal siting of the Ministry of Education land near the expressway is expected to attract students from as far away as Hornsby, according to Emeritus Professor Cliff Elliott, Chairman of the Central Coast Tertiary College Action Committee.
Place, of course, there's somewhere around 220,000, 230,000 people on the Central Coast now, and this will be an obvious place for them to come, and they'll come as courses build up more and more. Will turn this way rather than looking further afield. And then I think the next area will possibly be the Hornsby and the north of Sydney like that, because with the expressway coming straight through and no toll, it will be quicker to come this way than to try and struggle through Sydney to go to the universities there.
Meetings were held around the state, including Muswellbrook, Maitland and Newcastle. The meeting condemned the New South Wales government for what it said were punitive attacks on teachers' working conditions and for cuts to 2,000 teachers' jobs and 800 ancillary staff in the state. Speaking on a telephone link to all members, Teachers Federation President Jenny George said the ultimate aim of the Federation was to restore lost positions to the public service. Senior Vice President Phil Cross put an amendment to the members calling for a $50 voluntary fund from each teacher to set up a quality of public education fund to fight the government's education policy. It was resoundingly accepted. Phil Cross says teachers will continue to fight.
I think next year will be a difficult year, and I'm sure there could be some confrontation, but we will try and avoid that. We're not interested in disrupting the students' education. What we're interested in is driving home the point to the government that their policies are wrong. Not only we say it's wrong, but also all the parent groups say that it's wrong as well. Okay.
Can we
A paradise for birds. Even the name of this unique Newcastle exhibition hints of colour and excitement, and certainly once one steps inside the Lovett Room at the Regional Library, they find it to be just that. The exhibition is celebrating the discovery and documentation of bird life in Newcastle and the Hunter from the year 1811. It dates back to the first works of Lieutenant Scotto, the early commandant of Newcastle, whose works were released in volume earlier this year. But mostly it focuses on the observations and the sketchings of John and Elizabeth Gould, who stayed in the Hunter during 1839 and 40. The Birdman, as John was known, put together a series of 7 magnificent volumes, worth today millions of dollars. Unbeknown to many, the Newcastle Regional Library has those volumes, 2 of which have been brought out for the display. Today, a picture such as this one from the book would sell for $10,000, but visitors will have a chance to own a piece of that history for just a fraction of that cost. These exquisite photographic reproductions are also on display and will be offered for sale to the public. The bird theme is also reflected in a collection of photographs by talented Newcastle photographer Gary Webber, whose colour and black and white prints bring bird life to life. A joint venture with the Shortland Wetlands Centre and the Regional Art Gallery, the exhibition has been mounted to coincide with the Royal Australasian Ornithologist Congress at the Wetlands Centre this week.
Though shopping centres are reporting trading increases, sometimes up to 20% on last year, today it was quiet on the festive front. Store and centre managers are anticipating the big rush next week and have introduced extended late-night trading. Supercare is opening until 9 p.m. each night and until midnight on Thursday and Friday next week. David Jones will open its doors early from next Monday at 8:30 a.m. to close at 6:30 p.m. and 9 o'clock on Thursday and Friday. Santa's being kept busy, taking orders from the little ones, and he's putting on a special breakfast at Newcastle's Hunter Mall on Saturday morning to let mums have an hour shopping all by themselves. And shoppers this year are spending cautiously and buying up essentials rather than luxuries. For adults this year, the emphasis is on practicality, with electrical goods, household items and audio-visual aids being really popular choices. But for the children, Cabbage Patch dolls have had a resurgence in popularity, and puppets like this Rigadoon doll are real hot favourites this year. And also the boys are going for radio-controlled cars just like this one. Rebecca Skinner reporting for NBN News.
Miners from Howick Open Cut, Howick Washery and Newdale Washery voted to continue a strike which has kept the mine idle for more than a month. Miners say they will not accept BP's proposed 4-panel roster, although it is in line with a Coal Industry Tribunal decision made earlier this year. Management says it will accept alternatives to the proposal, provided they result in cost savings. The Miners' Federation says the roster changes are an attack on the 35-hour week.
What people must realise is that the 35-hour week has been in since 1972, approximately 1972 in the mining industry, and certainly BP are the first company, since that time anyway, to try and enforce a compulsory 40-hour week, or in some cases even beyond a 40-hour week. Now this has been unanimously rejected by each of the unions, not only involved at BP, but involved in the Northern District.
The decision to remain on strike will hit mining families hard over Christmas, but many indicated they were ready to see it out.
Well, it'll most definitely make it harder. I was very upset about the prospect of losing all the money we will lose over Christmas. But the alternative is probably worse.
My wife's gone and buried, and my daughter's not real well. She's very sick, and I suppose I'll have to take it, I'll have to wear it, but I'm not going to come and work 7 days a week. Otherwise I won't be about much longer either.
It affects everyone, you know, the whole thing, but that's how it is.
Yeah. Is it pretty hard though?
Yeah, it is, and you know, but you got to fight for what you think is right.
BP Coal estimates it's lost more than $2 million in coal earnings in the past month, and the effects of the dispute are about to spread. Hunter mines will stop from midnight on Monday when miners attend an aggregate meeting at Cessnock on Tuesday. The outcome of those talks could affect the entire coal industry over the Christmas season and into the new year. I'm Tom Hilston for NBN News.